April 7th, AD 30. Dawn breaks over Jerusalem during Passover, the Jewish festival celebrating freedom from slavery in Egypt. The city swells with pilgrims, perhaps 200,000 visitors cramming into streets designed for 30,000 residents. Roman soldiers patrol nervously. Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea, has traveled from his coastal headquarters at Caesarea specifically for Passover. It's when tensions run highest, when memories of liberation spark dangerous ideas about overthrowing Rome. This year, those fears prove justified. A Galilean preacher named Jesus of Nazareth has entered Jerusalem days earlier, greeted by crowds waving palm branches and shouting, "Hosanna," a word meaning, "save us." That's sedition. Now, less than a week later, Jesus stands before Pilate in chains, accused of claiming to be King of the Jews. By sunset, he'll be dead. Jesus arrived in Jerusalem 5 days ago riding a donkey, deliberately evoking prophecies about Israel's future king. Crowds lined the road, children sang, people laid cloaks on the ground before him. Then he stormed into the temple courtyard and overturned the money changers' tables, calling it a den of thieves. The gesture infuriated the Sadducees, the priestly aristocracy who controlled temple operations and profited from the exchange system. For 3 years, Jesus had been building a following across Galilee and Judea, preaching about God's kingdom, performing healings, gathering disciples. But his message increasingly challenged religious authorities. He ate with tax collectors and prostitutes. He touched lepers. He violated Sabbath regulations. Most dangerously, he implied divine authority, forgiving sins, reinterpreting Scripture, calling God his Father. To the Sanhedrin, this was blasphemy punishable by death. Last night, after sharing Passover meal with his disciples in an upper room, Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives to pray. Judas Iscariot, one of his 12 closest followers, led temple guards and Roman soldiers to arrest him. They seized Jesus and dragged him before Caiaphas the high priest for a nighttime trial. The Sanhedrin accused him of blasphemy for claiming messianic identity, but the Sanhedrin cannot execute anyone. Only Rome holds that authority. So at dawn, they marched Jesus to Pilate's palace, reformulating charges from religious to political. Blasphemy means nothing to Romans, but claiming kingship? That's treason. That threatens Caesar's authority. That gets you crucified. They tell Pilate this carpenter from Nazareth calls himself King of the Jews, refuses to pay Roman taxes, and incites rebellion. It's a calculated accusation designed to force Pilate's hand. Pilate questions Jesus directly. "Are you the King of the Jews?" Jesus responds ambiguously, "You have said so." Pilate finds him perplexing but not dangerous. The prefect has dealt with real rebels, zealots who assassinate Roman soldiers, bandits who raid supply caravans. This quiet preacher doesn't fit the profile. Pilate announces he finds no basis for charges. The crowd outside erupts. They invoke a Passover custom, the release of one prisoner. Pilate offers them Jesus or Barabbas, a known insurrectionist who actually killed Romans. The crowd, manipulated by chief priests circulating through the mob, demands Barabbas. "Crucify him," they shout about Jesus. Pilate hesitates. His wife sends a message. "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him in a dream." But Pilate governs a volatile province. He's already angered Emperor Tiberius with past missteps. Another riot, another complaint to Rome, and he'll lose his position, perhaps his life. Pragmatism wins. He washes his hands in a basin before the crowd, symbolically declaring innocence, then sentences Jesus to crucifixion. Roman soldiers take Jesus to the praetorium for scourging. They strip him, tie him to a post, and lash his back with a flagrum, a whip embedded with bone and metal designed to tear flesh. Most victims receive 39 lashes. The flogging is so brutal that many die before reaching the cross. Jesus survives, but is left barely recognizable. The soldiers mock him, dressing him in a purple robe, placing a crown woven from thorns on his head, kneeling sarcastically, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spit on him, strike him with a reed. Finally, they force him to carry the crossbeam, weighing perhaps 80 pounds, through Jerusalem's streets to Golgotha, the place of the skull, a small hill outside the city walls where executions are conducted publicly as deterrents. Jesus collapses under the crossbeam's weight. A man from Cyrene named Simon is compelled to carry it the rest of the way. They reach Golgotha around 9 in the morning. Soldiers offer Jesus wine mixed with myrrh, a mild anesthetic. He refuses. They strip him naked, crucifixion's ultimate humiliation, and nail his wrists and feet to the wooden cross. The placard above his head reads, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews," in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. It's meant as mockery, but becomes prophecy. 2 other men are crucified alongside him, convicted criminals. Jesus hangs between them. Passers-by hurl insults. Religious leaders mock. He saved others. He cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross that we may see and believe. Even one of the criminals crucified with him joins the mockery. The other defends Jesus and asks to be remembered. Jesus promises, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Crucifixion kills slowly through asphyxiation. Victims must push up on nailed feet to breathe, tearing wounds wider with each breath until exhaustion makes breathing impossible. Death takes hours, sometimes days. Around noon, darkness falls over the land for 3 hours. At 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Words from Psalm 22. Moments later he shouts, "It is finished," and dies. The whole ordeal lasted 6 hours. A centurion supervising the execution declares, "Truly this man was God's son." An earthquake strikes. The temple veil tears from top to bottom. Tombs break open. These supernatural signs terrify witnesses, but change nothing officially. To Rome, Jesus is just another executed criminal. Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy Sanhedrin member who secretly followed Jesus, requests the body from Pilate. Normally, crucified criminals are left to rot or thrown into mass graves. Joseph wraps Jesus in linen, places him in a new tomb carved from rock, and rolls a massive stone across the entrance. Guards are posted because Jesus predicted he would rise after 3 days. The authorities aren't taking chances. The disciples scatter in terror. Everything they believed has died on that cross. The movement appears finished, the threat neutralized. The execution has achieved its goal. Except it hasn't. 3 days later, women visiting the tomb find it empty. Jesus appears to his disciples alive. Over the next 40 days, he's seen by hundreds of witnesses. The terrified followers become bold preachers. Within weeks, Peter, who denied knowing Jesus 3 times the night of his arrest, stands in Jerusalem publicly proclaiming the crucified carpenter rose from death. 3,000 people convert in a single day. The movement explodes. Within 3 centuries, Christianity becomes Rome's official religion. The empire that executed Jesus eventually worships him. Pontius Pilate, remembered for one decision, becomes a central figure in Christian creeds recited billions of times. Suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. The crucifixion meant to end a movement birthed a global faith. The execution, designed to demonstrate Rome's power, exposed its limitations. You can kill a man. You can't kill an idea. You can crucify a body. You can't crucify a resurrection. Today, over 2 billion Christians trace their faith to that Friday afternoon outside Jerusalem when Roman soldiers nailed a Jewish preacher to a wooden cross. The cross, once Rome's symbol of shame and terror, became Christianity's central icon. The criminal's death became humanity's salvation. The public execution became history's pivot point. That's the paradox of Golgotha. They killed him to silence him. Instead, they made him immortal. The movement didn't end on that cross. It began there.